Hey, what's up guys? My name is Josh and welcome to another video. And today I want to talk about whether or not high-end headphones are worth it. And I think the clearest answer for this is that it just depends, which is not very clear at all, but it really does. And I think the best way to explain this is to say that if you are looking for specific features, like if you want really exceptional bass response or really wide soundstage or really clear top end, there's usually the best of the bunch at the top end of price or somewhere in that category, usually somewhere between $500 and $4,000 or $5,000 or $6,000. There's something in there that is better than everything below that $500 category. So what this translates to is that the best of certain things are usually in the upper end of price. However, just because a headphone is at the upper end of price doesn't mean it's better for those features. A classic example of this would be if you love the sound of the HD600 and you really like that vocal intimacy, going with Sennheiser's own HD800 is probably not going to be your best bet because that's not a very intimate headphone at all. And it's going to give you what I would consider to be almost a polar opposite listening experience. But the HD800 becomes a prime candidate if you're after something like sound staging. Another example would be bass. There are tons and tons of headphones that do bass exceptionally well. Like on the low end, you're gonna have things like the Fidelio X2s. You know, they're pretty good for their cost. Then a little bit higher, you're gonna have the Foss-X THX00 Ebonies. Then a little bit higher, you're gonna have the LCD2C. Then a little bit higher, you're gonna have the LCD-X. Then a little bit higher, a little bit higher, a little bit higher. And then eventually you're gonna get to something that is probably better than everything else, which is probably gonna be something along the lines of an LCD4. That's probably gonna have better bass response in more categories than just about everything else. But it's not going to be better at everything else that it does than other comparable headphones. So if the question is a high-end headphone better than a lower-end headphone, the answer is simply it just depends on what you're comparing and what you're looking for, and what the headphone on the top end is good at and what the headphone on the bottom end is good at. The simple truth behind headphones, the truth behind high-end headphones, is that they're not usually the best at everything. In fact, I haven't come across a headphone yet that I consider the best at everything. They usually have very specific, nuanced, unique features to their sound that may even make them worth their asking price in some cases, but they're never complete in every single area. And I think it's actually an impossible task. I don't think you can have both a bassy headphone and a bright headphone or a super clinical headphone and a mid-range forward headphone. And you can have a preference on which one you like, but there's no headphone that can do all of that because the simple act of being both mid-range forward and bass forward cancel each other out. Then neither seem forward compared to the other regions. So if you're looking into high-end headphones, determine what you want and then look for things that have that specific feature set. And don't kind of chase the dragon of a perfect headphone because in my experience, there isn't any. There are things that are definitely very good, but nothing that I would consider even close to perfect. So next I want to talk about IEMS versus headphones versus speakers. So I think people throw crap at all of these different groups. And the truth is that they all have their own benefits. And that's kind of what I want to talk about, and also some of the detriments. So let's take IEMS for example, right? You can't fit a headphone or a speaker in your pocket. You can't. You can't fit a decent one in your pocket. And that pocketability is a big reason to buy IEMs. Like a big reason is I can fit a super high fidelity experience with, let's say, the Fur M5s or the A8000s. And I can put it in my pocket and I can go, and I don't have to have a separate amp to power it or anything like that. I can just have this crazy audiophile experience in my pocket. And I think that's actually really, really valuable. It may not fit your specific circumstances, but for some people, that's invaluable. And then also with IEMs and headphones, with really low cost, you can get a full range experience between 20 Hertz and 20,000 Hertz. And that's not something that you can easily get with speakers, and you definitely can't get it cheaply. In fact, I have pretty insane towers. I have SPS Ultra towers, which are about $2,000 a pair. Definitely not on the top end of towers, but still very good. And they have dual 8-inch subs per speaker, and those don't even go down to 20 Hertz. And very few speakers and almost no bookshelves legitimately hit 20 Hertz at the seating position. They may hit 20 Hertz if you're like right on the speaker, but there's no way that's going to be audible back here for something like a bookshelf. But with headphones, you get full range experience, detail retrieval, and a personal listening experience. And if you have a backpack, they can fit in the backpack, something that speakers can't do. Not quite as mobile as IEMs, but usually in most cases better sounding than IEMs in my opinion. And they give you a full range experience, tons of detail. And then you have speakers, which have a whole different set of benefits. One benefit would be the tangible aspect of paying more. So these are the Edifier E25s. They're about 150 bucks a pair. And they're small, 3-inch woofer in the front, 1-inch dome tweeter, and 2 passive radiators. It sounds like 150 bucks. It doesn't sound that great. But then if you want to spend $2,000 and get something like those SVS Ultra Towers, you can, and you're legitimately getting 10 times the speaker. Like, it's actually 10 times the size. It's got a whole lot more surface area for the actual drivers. It's able to push a lot more air, and it does obviously sound better. So in many ways, it's a legitimate, tangible thing that is quantifiably better. Whereas headphones, you spend 200 bucks on a headphone and you get a $2,000 headphone, and the difference is usually fairly minor in terms of the build and the tangibility. It may have slightly better materials, but it's not going to be as big of a difference between a small speaker like this and a big tower like those Ultras. But then speakers have a whole nother benefit over headphones and IEMs, which is going to be sound staging and scale. You cannot yet scale with headphones or IEMs like you can with a good pair of speakers. But there's some other costs. So, they're not mobile, and you do have to have a separate amplifier to drive them a lot of times. And in my opinion, I think the details of even low price headphones outperform the details of fairly decent speakers. Maybe not at the very top end of speakers, but the price comparison there is just completely out of whack. So it's kind of unfair. But a $500 headphone far outperforms the $500 speaker for detail retrieval at least. But then you have things like bass response, and those can get down to 20 Hertz. But I'd rather hear 40 Hertz from a really amazing pair of towers than 20 Hertz on a headphone. It's just better in terms of the tangibility. You can feel it, and it's got that scale to it. So certain things on speakers, like bass response, like soundstage, are simply better. But it's not exactly an apples to apples, and everything has benefits and drawbacks, and that's why the 3 categories exist. And to be honest, it's kind of frustrating seeing some of the battles that people have over this. Like, I see headphone guys attacking IEM guys all the time when they see a high-priced IEM and they think that's not worth it, while they own a $2,000 or a $3,000 or $4,000 headphone themselves. And they don't think, a $3,000 IEM is worth it. It's like, well, maybe not to you, but to an IEM person, like they do usually get better as price goes up, similar to headphones and similar to speakers. But the tangibility factor as you get smaller in the device gets admittedly lower and lower. And, a $2,000 IEM feels almost no different than a $200 IEM. And then on this subject, I want to twist this into the order of importance for speakers or headphones, and then amplifiers, and then DACS, and then cables, and then X, Y, and Z files, all that stuff. So by far the most important thing you can change is the actual delivery system at the end, which is going to be your speakers, your headphones, or your IEMs. That's going to make the biggest difference. And I think where people go wrong is they take a headphone that they don't really like and they buy a crazy amplifier that they think is going to change the headphone so drastically that they're going to like it. And I think this is a bit misguided. I think you should start with a base model, being the speakers or the IEMs or the headphones that you really, really enjoy, and then use all the extra stuff to just enhance what you already find to be right for you. So I know some DAC guys are going to get kind of upset here, but I think the order of importance for this is going to be headphones, speakers, IEMs, amplifiers, then DACs, but not because of the actual DAC itself, but because every DAC has an output stage, which is kind of like a small amplifier that actually pushes the signal. And I think that stage usually makes a sound difference between the DACs, not the actual DAC portion of it where it's actually doing the conversion. So, whatever. So DACs, then files and cables and things like that. Just small, very, very small, minute changes. But I think what most people mess up on is not changing the inherent problem first. Okay, so that's it. That's all I wanted to discuss today. Thank you very much for watching. I'd love to know your thoughts on any of these subjects in the comment section down below. Now, personally, I would like to see more unifying and understanding on all sides. Like, you know, some people don't understand big speakers. I do. Some people don't understand IEMS. I do. And I think other people should kind of try and come at it from the perspective of somebody who lives a slightly different lifestyle than them. Well, in general, I'd like to see the audio community get a little bit more friendly. But at this point, I'm rambling, so I'll let you go. Thank you very much for watching. Again, my name is Josh. See you later.